Notre Dame picks up their 11th offensive commit. Does
This
that
is the
sound
10th.
accurate?
He was
This
the
is
10th.
Okay.
Yes,
So
they
this
got
is
a
the 10th.
quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, a tight end, and now 3 offensive linemen. So
Okay.
that's 10. Yep.
So 10th commitment on the offensive side of the board.
I know why you think that, Vince, because I said 10th during the show, but I said Styles was the 10th. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay.
So yeah,
Makes sense.
So
Nope.
I threw
Perfect.
you off. Apologies.
No, you're good. You're good. I need to pay more attention to what you're saying.
I know, man. Come on, man. Vince is Vince.
So 10th offensive commitment in the class of 24 for Notre Dame. Styles Prescod commits to Notre Dame. He's from Fishers, Indiana, Hamilton Southeastern High School here in Indiana. So that's right around the Indianapolis area for those of you that are not local. I believe it is a northeast type of suburb of Indianapolis. Been down there many times for soccer. But
so Southeastern High School is in the northeastern part of Indianapolis. Makes total sense.
Yeah, perfect sense. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that's accurate. I mean, geography whizzes out there can.
I was just
knock me there, but yes, it makes no sense whatsoever. But yeah, he's from Indiana. I know he was a big Notre Dame lean. We weren't exactly sure when he was going to commit, but offensive tackle. His film is fun to watch just because it is so obvious that his size for the offensive line that he's playing on, it's it's like Sesame Street. One of these things is not like the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
The guard that he's playing against is probably about 5'9", about 250, and that's what it looked like at times. But big kid, tough kid. He's been a Notre Dame lean, came to campus. Here we are, commits on Tuesday.
So
this is exciting.
Vince, this is one of those ones that for a while has been more of a when, not if.
Sure.
Type of situation. When is he going to commit, not if. So the backstory on it is obviously Coach Easton went down and saw him in January. Not saw him, but he went down to the high school in January. And at the time, they were still kind of creating their 2024 board. Okay. There weren't a whole lot of kids. I think they had like 4 or 5 kids had been offered so far. And it was like Gearby Lambert, Peter Jones had already been offered. And that was really the extent of, Kyle Altuner had an offer, but they weren't recruiting him. Jordan Thompson had an offer. They weren't really recruiting him. And so they go down and Coach Easton meets with, goes to his high school, and he said he liked the film, liked everything he'd heard about the young man, because Coach Easton puts a lot of value on, as you know, it's not just about what I see on film. I got to know that you've got the character to fit into my room, the character to be coached by me, the character to fit in with this group. And that's how you find that out, by talking to the people around him. That's a big thing what those in-school visits are for. Talk to the guidance counselor, talk to a teacher, some coaches will go talk to janitors and people like the people that work in the cafeteria and be like, hey, do you know so-and-so? Yeah, I do. What's he like? Does he treat people well? No, he's kind of a jerk. You'll drop a kid over that if you're a place 100%. Like Notre Dame.
It's funny. I have conversations with kids like that all the time in my office.
Yeah.
Like, if you think you're this, then you need to make sure you're this, because they talk to us like as deans and as his PE teacher or wherever I have been in my career. I've talked about kids that I haven't coached because the coaches will ask me about them.
Right.
Whether it's a phone call or in person or whatever.
Because they want to know what kind of character you have.
Absolutely.
And so Styles checked all those boxes and immediately got an offer from Notre Dame. From that moment on, Vince, it was kind of a when, not if scenario. Yeah. We were actually told, you know this, Vince, because I've had Styles Prescod's commitment story written for about 2 months because he was originally supposed to commit during the Blue Gold game. Decided he didn't want to, decided he wanted to just take a little bit more time. But yeah, he had kind of, we had, you remember sitting there watching me right at that day. And Notre Dame didn't push it. And that's what I really like about what the staff is doing. He wasn't ready yet. So they said, cool, no big deal. And they just let it play out. And now obviously he's in the class. I think getting him on campus and I talked about this in yesterday's show, but getting him on campus this weekend with the other commits was sort of something I think he really needed.
Sure.
To for sure do this. Because remember, the coach he's committing to is not the coach that offered him. He's in one of those rare situations in this class where Micah Gilbert, Isaiah Canyon, Cam Williams, those guys all recruited and committed to Chancey Stuckey, right? Yep. The O-lineman and the quarterback are guys that had to get to know a new coach. And that is very important, as we all know. Those are very important things for offensive linemen especially. And so I think that relationship needed some time to grow to make sure you were as comfortable with Coach Rudolph as you were with Coach Heastan. And I think Coach Rudolph did a very good job here, not pushing the kid, but letting the relationship develop.
Mm-hmm.
And then getting him around the other kids this weekend was sort of that's what he needed to seal the deal. And that's what he got. And that's why Styles Prescod is now a member of the Notre Dame 2024 class.
So he's the third offensive lineman in this class. So how does he fit in with the other two guys? And then if they're still I think they're still looking for another offensive lineman. So how does
they're looking for one guy, not necessarily another offensive lineman. There's one guy on the board. Okay.
Fair enough. So how does he fit? What's his class impact?
So when you look at the last 3 years, Vince, they signed 5, 5, and 5 offensive linemen, and they've only had 2 of those kids leave so far. Mm-hmm. You had obviously Caleb Johnson from the 21 class, and then Joey Tanona had to medically retire from the 22 class. They signed 5 more again last year. So you have 13 kids in 3 classes. That's a lot. Also, of those 3 classes, Joe Alt's the only one who didn't redshirt. So all those kids, including Blake Fisher, have 2 years of eligibility remaining after the 2023
At the
season.
minimum. At the minimum.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now we don't expect Blake Fisher to take it. So from a number standpoint, Vince, they only needed 3 offensive linemen in this class. And so Styles gets you to your minimum. But here was the thing that was more important than the numbers need is they need tackles.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, even though I have Peter Jones ranked higher than Styles Prescod, this is the most important pickup they've had so far because he's a tackle. They have a lot of guys that they think can play tackle that are probably better guards. Ty Chan's an example. Because why he's really struggling so far, because he's playing tackle and he shouldn't be playing tackle. He's a guard.
Yeah.
Sullivan Absher's a guy that they're going to give a shot at tackle, and I hope he can stick a tackle. They need him to stick a tackle, but I think he's right now projects more as a guard, partly because we've never seen him. And so to me, when I look at a kid like that, Vince, you're like, look, you needed a kid to play tackle. You absolutely needed a kid to play tackle. And I think that this young man can play tackle. Now, some sites have him listed as an interior offensive lineman. Any tackle that's worth a darn can play guard. Sure. Not every guard can play tackle. That's the reality and the truth of college football. Unless you're like 6'8", 6'9", like Joe Alt might have a little bit of a tough time playing guard just because he's so tall. But he plays with really good pad level. He could be a solid guard, right? There's a lot of good guards that couldn't play tackle at a high level. And to me, Styles is a guy that can play both, but he's a tackle. He's a natural tackle. And so when you talk about the class impact, Vince, that's the biggest thing. Sure. Is they needed a guy that was a pure tackle. And that's the key here.
So this is a prime example. What I think you're saying, this is a prime example of when you're grading out a class. It's about one of the big things that you always look at that you've taught me about is it's not just about their ranking, but it's also about the need in the class.
Yes.
And the need in the class is for a tackle, and then they pick up this kid, and he fits the need in this class even more so than whatever his ranking is because he's a tackle.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is like, it's not just about, okay, did you get your numbers needs? We needed 3 offensive linemen. Okay, great. But what specifically did you need specifically beyond just the numbers? That's more important, right. Vince. Like, hey, we needed guards and we got no guards. That's okay. You've got a bunch of tackles that are physical and you can figure the guard part out. That's a different deal. It's more of and it's a rare thing for Notre Dame. And this is partly because of the last couple classes have been so guard heavy, and interior heavy. Notre Dame loves Ashton Craig. He's really had a great start to his career. Coach Heastan loved him. Now Coach Rudolph loves him. Coach Parker loves him. But he's an interior player. He's an interior player. Ty Chan, I think, is an interior player. The staff is very high on Sam Pendleton and Joe Otting, but they're interior players. They're not tackles. And the way Coach Heastan recruited for so long, Vince, it was like just recruit a bunch of tackles
and
for the most part, and then you can move them inside.
Right.
We haven't seen as much of that. We've seen a lot more pure inside guys being recruited at the end of the Jeff Quinn era, and even in Coach Heastan's first class. There was at least 2 guys for sure. I would argue 3 that are for sure interior players, because I would argue that Chris Tarrick is If he's going to be good in college, it's going to be as a guard. I don't see him as a tackle. And potentially 4 interior guys. And then Charles Jagasol's a guy that could end up moving to guard by default because he's your best, one of your 5 best, but the tackle spots are full, right? So you needed tackles.
Yeah.
Desperately needed tackles. Styles is a kid that's going to need a little bit of time, at least as of right now, but he's a very talented. He's got a lot of talent, Vince. He's raw right now. Like right now, he ranks as a top 250 player for me. He's not like a top 100 guy. He's like around the 225 to 250 range. I think that one of the services has him there. I believe, I think On 3 has him as a top 250 player. You know, it's kind of interesting. You know, we bang on On3's rankings a lot. I despise their process in a lot of ways, and I think their ranking of CJ Carr is bad. But there are some guys on the Notre Dame board, a lot of guys on the Notre Dame board, that they're higher on than everybody else. They have Styles as the number 189 player in the country. It's a little higher than I would have him. I'd have him around like 225, 240-ish is probably the range of kind of where I see him based on the grade he got for me. But that's his current grade. His upside grade is 4.5 star easy because there's a lot of tools there. He's just really raw. He needs a lot of work, but there's a lot of talent to work with, Vince. And, you know, he got the Harry Hiestand stamp of approval, which, as you know, for me means a lot because this is a guy that Coach Hiestand liked and wanted. And then, of course, Coach Rudolph jumped on board as well. So this is from that standpoint, Vince, this is a big need. And now that he's in the class now, you know, you can focus your attention on other things, which is, you know, we don't need to have a whole what's next section. Well, we will, because we'll talk about 25 a little bit. But the key is now this allows you to focus on Gearby Lambert.
Yep, absolutely.
Which is important.
No,
very,
absolutely.
very important.